at the very bottom of the world, untouched by agriculture, void of cities, uninhabited except by the most elite researchers, lies the only place on Earth no one is truly allowed to explore freely, Antarctica, a silent, shimmering world of endless snow and frozen sky, a continent larger than Europe, yet treated more like the distant moon than part of Earth's living body. It's the least visited, least contested, and least understood region of our planet, and that alone should raise questions. No country claims ownership, no commercial flights pass over it, no satellites freely photograph it, and any attempt to cross it independently is met not with ecological concern, but international confrontation. Why? We've flown to space. We've mapped Mars. We have billionaire-funded submarines, exploring ocean trenches, and tech moguls launching rockets beyond the stratosphere. But no one discovers Antarctica. Instead, it waits, watched, guarded, restricted. This is not just an icy wasteland. This is something else. The Antarctic Treaty, signed in 1959, and still respected by over 50 nations, is globally unprecedented. It bans all military activity. It forbids independent resource exploration. It locks down the entire landmass under scientific cooperation and peaceful purposes. It also ensures that no unaffiliated human being can legally investigate what lies beneath its surface. Let that sink in. This makes Antarctica the only place in human history where world governments chose to unite, not to conquer it, but to keep it sealed. And sealed it remains. But what exactly required sealing? Let's reverse the lens. Before the word Antarctica became synonymous with an empty southern void, ancient civilizations spoke of lands encircled by ice, far to the south, where gods vanished and truth was buried. Some indigenous traditions recall southern realms of origin, long forgotten. The Vikings whispered of lands at the bottom of the world. Hindus spoke of Atala, the inverse realm beneath the earth, hidden in the poles. And then there are the maps. The Piri Reis map of 1513, accurately depicting the northern coast of what can only be Antarctica, shown with no ice. No satellite imagery existed back then. No radar, no aerial photography. Yet, there it is. Mountain ranges aligned with modern geology, in a continent supposedly undiscovered for 300 more years. And this map isn't alone. The Orontius, Phineas map, 1531, the Boichet map, 1737, each of these curiously accurate documents show Antarctica not under miles of glacial cover, but lush, green, mapped in segments, labeled with river systems. Ask yourself this. How did ancient mariners chart a continent beneath the ice, centuries before modern science confirmed its shape? They didn't. They copied something older, something kept alive through coded knowledge, and something that needed to be hidden. The earliest cartographers said it plainly. They admitted to drawing from much more ancient sources. Charts derived from ancient documents salvaged from Constantinople, the Library of Alexandria, or perhaps even pre-flood archives inherited by forgotten priest-kings, and the freeze that came suddenly. Radiocarbon samples taken from deep below the ice shelf reveal a tropical forest beneath the continent, with perfectly preserved pollen, trees, and fossils, resembling climates such as modern-day Chile or New Zealand. So what happened in between? Mainstream science calls it sudden climate shift. But what if that sudden shift was engineered? Could a mass cataclysm have blanketed the region, not just in frost, but secrecy? Then, the anomalies? Over the last 70 years, satellites and mapping tools have picked up massive geometric structures buried deep within Antarctica's ice shelf. So symmetrical they cannot be natural. Triangular pyramid shapes, grid lines, heat maps radiating from known mountain ranges, despite deadly temperatures. Some of these images were public for a time, then vanished, blacked out on Google Earth, removed from old forums, replaced with white overlays as if the Earth herself got an eraser smudge. What exactly is being hidden there? Even stranger, high-profile visitors without explanation. John Kerry, U.S. Secretary of State, visited Antarctica in 2016 on Election Day, a global date of political chaos. Why? No reason was publicized. Patriarch Kirill of Moscow, leader of the Russian Orthodox Church, journeyed there a few months later, reportedly holding a sealed religious artifact. Why does a spiritual leader need access to a silent continent? Buzz Aldrin, Apollo astronaut, visited, and days later, he posted a tweet, "We are all in danger. It is evil itself." Coincidence? Or the slip of someone who saw? Let's go further. Why did Hitler send an elite SS division to Antarctica in 1938? Why did they name the region Neuschwabenland, claiming territory in the coldest spot on Earth? And why did the US launch Operation Highjump just 8 years later? A massive military expedition under Admiral Richard Byrd that faced unexplained interference, lost aircraft, and an early, frantic evacuation. Byrd later claimed to have encountered flying crafts faster than anything we've ever seen, and referred to an inner Earth realm, in quotes, brushed away as delusions, or warnings. Was Antarctica evacuated out of fear, or silenced under command? So many theories circulate the icy veil. Some say it's the real Atlantis, pushed out and downward by the flood. Others say it's a cathedral of ancient alien technology, a black vault beneath the crust of consciousness. Others still say that beneath the frost is a memory trigger, a geocoded DNA pulse, meant to wake us up when the climate and collective mind become warm enough to bear the truth. But no matter the theory, they all point inward. Antarctica isn't. Antarctica, it's something we were never supposed to go back to until now. Deep dive into ancient cartography and literature, documenting Antarctica long before its official discovery. Focus on the Piri Reis map, Orontius Finesse, the Bochet map, and ancient worldviews about polar lands. Introduce civilizations that reference the southern land, the Hindus, Atala, Egyptians, Mayans, and Norse legends. Open discussion on whether these maps are evidence of a pre-flood worldview, access to ancient knowledge, or residual memory of forbidden lands before the ice. Ancient maps. Lost geographies and polar records. Word count 2000. There's a saying among forbidden historians: maps remember what history forgets. And few things force history into silence more than those ancient maps that accurately depict a land they weren't supposed to know. Antarctica, centuries before its official discovery. Let's start with the most controversial, the Piri Reis map, dated 1513, drawn by Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis. The map is shockingly accurate in one profound way. It shows the northern coastline of Antarctica, ice-free. Mainstream historians try to step around this claim. Some say it was an exaggerated drawing of South America. Others suggest it's artistic speculation. But the latitude, the jagged shoreline, and the geological formations of the mountains align exactly with what seismic readings would reveal. 400 years later, beneath the Antarctic ice, the coastline shown on Piri Reis map isn't guesswork. It's precision, and Reis himself never claimed credit. He said his map was compiled using sources from the time of Alexander the Great, which likely referred to even older, now lost libraries, perhaps housed in Constantinople before it fell, or even remnants of the Library of Alexandria. But Piri Reis is not alone. The Orontius Finesse map, 1531, goes further, showing mountain ranges, rivers flowing through inland valleys, and even a general topographic layout of Antarctica that closely matches modern imaging systems. How? Like Reis Finesse, claimed to have found older source material, fragments from unknown civilizations, described only as ancient sea charts. There's more. Philippe Boichet, a French cartographer in 1737, presented Antarctica split into two large landmasses separated by a central waterway, long ridiculed as fantasy. And yet, in 1958, Scientists discovered under hundreds of meters of ice, a long rift dividing East and West Antarctica, separated by the Transantarctic Mountains. Was Bush wrong, or remembering something we'd forgotten? None of these men had satellites, none had sonar, and yet they knew. Ask yourself, why does serious academic discourse avoid these maps? Why are they taught, if at all, as quaint anomalies, quickly brushed aside with footnotes and qualifiers? Because what they imply is paradigm-breaking. They imply that someone had knowledge of this land before the ice came, or worse, before it was erased. But it's not just maps. Nearly every ancient civilization had whispers, legends, or star maps depicting lands beyond the known world, often associated with divine beings, disappearances, and cataclysmic reversal. In Hindu cosmology, the netherworld is called Atala, described as an ancient land lying to the far south, hidden beneath mountains of ice and snow. Atala is ruled not by demons, but by divine figures of immense beauty and intellect. Some belief systems even link Atala with Shambhala, a mythic hidden realm where pure knowledge is preserved during every planetary reset. In Norse tradition, when Ragnarok ends the world, survivors escape to a land called Gimli, a bright realm untouched by fire and darkness, awaiting humanity's rebirth. Legend places Gimli far to the south, where light remains even amid chaos. Egyptian priests told Solon, in Plato's Timaeus, about lands destroyed in a single day and night. Not just Atlantis, but much of the Earth's true geography. Plato was clear, these were not metaphors. The priests referred to a real place, erased because its knowledge was corrupted. The Mayans spoke of Xibalba, an underworld that could be accessed beyond the white horizon, where pale beasts guarded knowledge from the living. Their calendar aligned with precessions of the polar stars, not just solar movements. These weren't just spiritual geographies, they were cosmopolitical coordinates, hidden in mythology to outlast destruction. Even the Bible hints at Earth ends forgotten. Job 38 minutes and 22 seconds. Have you entered the storehouses of the snow? Have you seen the storehouses of the hail? Scholars argue this is simply poetic language. But what if it were observational, a memory of something real, buried in frozen watchtowers? In ancient times, the concept of terra australis incognita, the unknown southern land, was widespread. Explorers believed that such a place had to exist to balance the Earth's landmass. They thought Earth would tip off axis without it. This belief was so strong, they added an entire non-visible land to nearly every world map, drawn not as fantasy, but cosmic architecture. Was that architecture invented or inherited? Let's now address a troubling question. If Antarctica was once known and then forgotten, who engineered the forgetting? Ancient texts cry of a flood divinely sent to wipe out corrupt civilizations, but others whisper of a second wave, not of water, but of memory. What if, before the flood, knowledge of the poles, star charts, energy lines, and planetary truths was decentralized? And what if those who survived the flood consolidated that knowledge and hid the rest? What if major temples, pyramids, and ley lines concentrate in the northern hemisphere not because the southern half was empty, but because it was sealed for a reason, and perhaps because it still holds a mirror to what came before, uncontaminated by war, weather, and rewriting? Today, when you scroll Google Earth, you can't truly see Antarctica. Sections are blurred out, edges are pixelated, satellite images disappear overnight. On scientific mapping tools, some sectors are cut and paste errors placed into official documents. Meanwhile, those same tools render the Sahara or urban city blocks in perfect clarity. Why censor the cold? Because cold memory doesn't mean inactive memory. It means preserved, unwithered, unedited, living in stone and ice, waiting for awakening. The maps weren't mistakes, They were warnings, or invitations, they say. Look again, they say, we told you, twice before the flood. And now, the ice whispers a third time. Are you listening? There is a kind of silence that drips with intention, a silence built not from absence, but from control. And nowhere is that silence colder, deeper, or more tightly sealed than the mysteries surrounding Operation High Jump. In 1946, mere months after World War II had ended, before the ashes of Hiroshima had even cooled, the United States Navy launched the largest Antarctic expedition in known history. Called Operation High Jump, the mission involved 13 ships, 4,700 men, and an aircraft carrier. Officially, they were performing training exercises and testing equipment in extreme conditions. Unofficially, well, the whispers say otherwise. The mission was led by Admiral Richard E. Byrd, a celebrated explorer who had already flown over both the North and South Poles. His reputation was flawless. His records, until this mission, were untouchable. But what followed at the bottom of the earth changed something. In him, and in the story of Antarctica. The expedition was supposed to last 6 months. It ended in 6 weeks. Why? Official statements claimed poor weather, equipment failure, and logistical breakdown. But internal military memos suggest rising panic, wounded soldiers, and aircraft lost under mysterious circumstances, reported by some as engaging with enemy forces of unknown origin. In interviews after the operation, Byrd made comments that stunned listeners. The United States must be prepared to defend against aircraft that can fly from pole to pole at incredible speeds. Aircraft? Whose aircraft? Admiral. His comment made headlines in South America, but was quickly downplayed in the States. Then came the rumors, Byrd's private diary, parts of it unpublished, where he allegedly records something far more frightening, a journey inside the earth, a warm hollow beneath the pole, lush, lighted by an inner sun, inhabited by beings far more intelligent than us. Some claim he met one of them. Others say he only saw their crafts. Either way, he was warned. Humanity was playing with dangerous forces, atomic energy chief among them, and these inner beings had been watching. The diary, if real, raises unsettling possibilities. But here's the catch. Page numbers are missing officially, and several flight logs from Operation High Jump have been sealed indefinitely by military archives. If there was nothing to hide, why hide anything? Let's rewind 10 years. In 1938, another power turned its attention south, Nazi Germany, under the cover of scientific research. Hitler's Third Reich launched an expedition to Antarctica, claiming a large swath of land, and calling it Neuschwabenland. It's documented. They even dropped aluminum darts adorned with swastikas across vast areas, marking territory. But what were they looking for? The prevailing theory points to 2 things: ancient relics, or technology, hidden beneath the ice axis. 2 inner earth portals spoken of in Vedic and Tibetan traditions. The Nazis were deeply involved in the occult, metaphysical research, and ancient Aryan mythos. They scoured the world for sacred symbols, underground knowledge, and prehistoric technologies. If they believed Antarctica held a lost civilization's gateway, they'd stop at nothing to find it. And here's what brings chills. After the war, thousands of Nazi officers mysteriously vanished. Not captured, not executed, just ... gone. Some speculate they established an underground fortress beneath the ice, something Operation High Jump might have been sent to confront, or suppress. Now, let's bridge the gap between legend and documents. Declassified CIA files and Majestic 12 documents, though heavily sanitized, acknowledge the possibility of non-terrestrial threats based at extreme polar locations. UFO sightings increased sharply in the years immediately following Operation High Jump, especially in the southern hemisphere. Pilots, civilians, and military personnel begin reporting sightings of disc-shaped crafts near New Zealand, Chile, Argentina, and even the edge of the Antarctic ice shelf. These aren't isolated hallucinations. These are coordinated events, often intercepted, sealed, or buried by the same intelligence agencies tasked with disclosure prevention. Then there's the treaty, the Antarctic Treaty System, signed in 1959 by the world's superpowers. During the height of Cold War tension, agreed to do something no nations have ever done since. Completely demilitarize a continent, ban resource extraction, ban territorial claims, ban human colonization. Yourself, why would the world fight viciously over oil, over sugar, over steel, but not over a continent rich in untapped minerals and strategic military positioning? Because it's not about what they could gain, it's about what they might uncover. Rumors still linger of facilities hidden beneath the surface, heavily guarded settlements, and conflict with beings whose existence challenges our origin stories. Ancient technologies, dimensional rifts, magnetic anomalies so large they interfere with aircraft instruments. Satellites have detected radiating heat beneath East Antarctica, exactly where no tectonic activities should exist, and repeated radar scans reveal geometric voids and towering structures buried under solid ice sheets. But here's where it gets truly strange. Between 2014 and 2022, multiple diplomatic and religious figures quietly traveled to Antarctica, including Patriarch Kirill of the Russian Orthodox Church's Secretary of State, John Kerry, 2016 NASA advisors and high-ranking Jesuits all made statements afterward that avoided acknowledgement of anything significant. Public silence, private concern. Antarctica is not just a frozen desert, it's a sealed vault, a cold archive, where something older than any empire waits, perhaps sleeping, perhaps watching, perhaps warning. So we must finally ask, what exactly did Byrd see? What chased off the most advanced navy of its time, not with bullets, but fear? Why did those diaries vanish? Why were the maps so accurate long before we arrived? And why, to this day, are we not allowed to look where the anomalies are? Perhaps because Antarctica is not just Earth's final unexplored realm. It's the threshold, the thin veil between today's empire of illusion and yesterday's truth. And that veil is cracking. Before history, there was memory. Before myth, there were cities. Before the flood, there was something else, something so advanced, so connected to forces greater than ourselves, that it needed to be erased, and it may have been buried under Antarctica. Most mainstream historians accept that civilization began around 6,000 years ago, with Sumer, Egypt, and the Indus Valley rising like scattered pillars in a world otherwise primitive. But their own records disagree. The Sumerians claimed to inherit knowledge from pre-flood kings. The Egyptians traced their lineages back to Zep-Tepi, the first time. The ancient Hindus described cycles of creation and destruction, with advanced realms wiped clean by fire and flood. Even Plato, our earliest philosophical chronicler of Atlantis, claimed that powerful land fell 9,000 years before his time, a number that aligns uncannily with the end of the Younger Dryas, a climactic shift that triggered global flooding, rising oceans, and the violent collapse of prehistoric ecosystems. Across continents, megalithic stonework rises from the ground, not as monuments built toward the future, but as remnants of a forgotten past. So what does this have to do with Antarctica? Everything. Because while tales like Atlantis or Lemuria are often dismissed as fantasy, something in Antarctica resists dismissal. Something is preserved, still buried, not destroyed, only hidden with geological precision. Not destroyed, because maybe it was never meant to be erased entirely. Let's start with the satellite data. NASA and European agencies, long tasked with climate mapping, have repeatedly detected multiple pyramid-shaped formations protruding through the layers of ice along Antarctica's Ellsworth Mountains. The symmetry is haunting. Perfect triangular faces, fixed on angles that align with planetary cardinal points, similar to Giza, Angkor Wat, and Teotihuacan. Coincidence? That's a heavy word, where mathematical geometry meets impossible terrain. In 2016, Google Earth sleuths and independent researchers began noticing black site locations in remote coordinates. Grid-like shapes frozen beneath glacial levels, including step-like structures and straight-line geometry that bears no natural explanation. Then there are the heat signatures, glowing deep under the crust in uninhabited zones. Not tectonic, not volcanic. They radiate as if some kind of energy source lies dormant beneath the cold. Some speculate a magnetic resonance field or submerged crystal tech, similar to legends of real power spoken of by secret societies. Even stranger, vegetation, in fossil form. Paleobiologists have uncovered signs of ancient forests in eastern Antarctica. Not millions of years ago, just a few thousand. Trees, pollen, and leaves preserved in pockets, indicating a habitable climate, not in the prehistoric glow of the dinosaurs, but in the fringe of historical time. So how would that be possible, unless something, or someone, lived long before? The ice. Let's bring prophecy into play. The Book of Enoch, cast out of canon by early religious councils, speaks of a pre-flood era where divine beings known as the Watchers descended to mingle with humanity. They birthed the Nephilim giants, whose strength and appetite nearly consumed the world god, or something greater, sent the flood. But Enoch's writings suggest hidden things were preserved, stored in the earth's deep places until a time of awakening. Could Antarctica be one of those vaults? The myth of Atlantis speaks not just of destruction, but of catastrophic migration. The survivors, priest-kings and mystics, are said to have scattered across the earth, bringing sacred knowledge to Egypt, Sumer, and even Mesoamerica. But what if not all fled north and west? What if some went south, far south, to a land uncorrupted, where their temples could be built without fear of war and conquest? What if they didn't die, but retreated, encasing their knowledge in stone, locking it beneath the frozen tundra, knowing that one day the ice would melt? Across civilizations, a pattern emerges. The Mayan Popol Vuh speaks of a flood that destroyed the previous world age. Hopi prophecy tells of cities beneath the ocean that will one day rise again. In the Sri Lankan Mahavamsa, there is mention of a southern continent rich in knowledge lost after cosmic disturbance. Could all these be fragments of Antarctica's true history? There is a new theory among spiritual archaeologists and forbidden scholars. Antarctica was the southern pole of an advanced globe-spanning civilization, not Atlantean per se, but part of a high-order network. Its cities, unlike ours, were spiritual civic centers, aligned to stars, guided by sacred geometry, fueled possibly by resonance, magnetism, and microforms of alchemy, long since erased from collective memory. And if such a civilization existed, the next question emerges: why? Was it hidden? And who orchestrated its burial? Some theorists point to planetary cataclysm, polar shifts, asteroid impact, solar event. Others suggest it was a choice, a self-imposed extinction and sealing to prevent technology from falling into barbaric hands. It's plausible. Even the ancient Vedas speak of divine cities vanishing by spiritual decree, to be unlocked only when consciousness is advanced enough to handle them. So perhaps what lies beneath Antarctica is not just buried stone, but a consciousness-locked time capsule, awaiting specific resonances, human frequencies, or spiritual maturity to open. And perhaps that moment is near. The melting has begun. Global warming may not just be a crisis. It may be a catalyst, because unmelted truth is not destroyed. It only incubates. And as Antarctica thaws, so too does the veil between timelines. So too does the truth written before the first page of history. There are places hidden not just by geography, but by time, language, and frequency, sealed through epical wisdom and cosmic memory. Antarctica may be one of them. Ancient cultures didn't just map continents, They mapped destiny. And in nearly every prophetic cycle from east to west, north to south, there echoes a warning: that which was frozen shall one day rise. Let us begin in Enoch. The Book of Enoch is a text of fractured time, a sacred narrative long removed from biblical canon, yet older, bolder, and broader in scope than Genesis alone. Enoch didn't just dream of future judgment. He walked dimensions, was taken by angels, and shown the hidden places where stars bend and fire sleeps. In his visions, he beheld the ends of the earth and the sealed lands, bound by ice and guarded by divine law. What Enoch described eerily mirrors Antarctica, not as empty, but as contained, and his message was clear: when the watchers are close to judgment, when mankind repeats the forbidden manipulations of the past, the deep places would once again open. Could he have seen Antarctica? Could the sealed land, where cold fire sleeps, be literal? From mystic perspectives, yes, that the Hopi tell of Saipapu, a gateway between worlds. Before the final cycle of destruction, they believe that the hidden cities of those who came before will rise from beneath the ice and ocean, remnants of the last world age. Their oral traditions speak of the south, not the north, as the final doorway. In Hindu cosmology, lands such as Atala Vitala and Sutala lie in lower layers of reality, polar or interior gateways, where divine beings hold ancient blueprints of earth. These subterranean realms are not considered evil, but secret, destined to emerge again when Kali Yuga ends. Plato, through the Ceylon Egyptian account, hinted that after Atlantis, the gates of knowledge were closed until mankind was ready to remember. He mentions lands far beyond the pillars, swallowed in a single day and night, shielded from memory by divine effort. Even modern esoterics orbit the same trajectory. Helena Blavatsky, matriarch of Theosophy, wrote of divine lands at the pole, associated with the lost Lemuria, with temples aligned vertically across Earth's spiritual spine. In her cosmology, these polar zones were guarded by ancient beings, and would break through dimensional restraints as we approached the Great Shift. Other seers speak through riddles. Nostradamus, the infamous prophet, wrote in Quatrain 6297, "At the pole will be great lightning, and hidden fire through treasures and temples, sealed under frost." His metaphors often read like science fiction, but in the context of Antarctica, where lightning storms now rage differently across the magnetic pole, the verse sharpens. Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet, added dimension. He spoke of Atlantean halls of records, hidden at 3 points on Earth, beneath the Sphinx of Egypt, under waters near Bimini, and beneath ice in the south. He claimed that these halls would reveal themselves when mankind entered a new vibrational age, an age where spirit and science merged, where remembering overtook dogma, all timed to a planetary awakening. So how might Antarctica connect? It is, symbolically, the anchor of Earth's unconscious, the pole of silence, the white veil. Its inversion to the North Pole, often associated with higher mind or divine ascent, gives Antarctica the role of underworld gate, not in demonic terms, but as submerged memory. Remember, this region is not just cold land, it is encircled fully by the Antarctic vortex, one of the few self-contained weather systems on Earth, spinning uniquely, without significant wind disruption from surrounding continents. In mystic terms, this would be called a void field, a closed space of different energy, time, and space resonance. Many ancient temples, especially Tibetan Dharma wheels and Vedic sun gates, are designed after this resonance model. Antarctica then becomes a planetary temple, one not to be entered until time aligns correctly. Even Hermeticism teaches this in symbolic language: as above, so below. That which is hidden will rise. For what is sealed in the frost shall return in flame before the end. Flame beneath ice. Today, subtle flame stirs. The melting has started. The magnetic pole is moving thousands of kilometers at accelerating speeds. Satellite systems need constant updating as the metal heart of the Earth shifts. Certain spiritualists believe this pole drift signals a spiritual unbinding, that time locks on ancient sites may begin releasing. Could Antarctica be such a site? Global warming, as used synthetically in media panic, often distracts from spiritual opportunity. Perhaps this thawing is no accident. Perhaps it's the planet waking up what we were never meant to forget. The esoteric warnings were never apocalyptic. They were preparations, not for the end of the world, but for the resurfacing of the first world. The one the flood erased, the one the frost guarded, the one the watchers, prophets, and seers couldn't speak of directly, but they hinted, they encoded, they passed the knowledge sideways, through metaphor, until now, until enough seekers had eyes to see. Because above all, prophecy is permission, and maps are memory. When prophecy and map align, something hidden moves, something forgotten awakens, and that forgotten place, far below, may just be Antarctica, in a world divided by borders, religion, ideology, and war. How is it that one place, one continent, remains untouched by chaos, conquest, or commercial ambition? How is it that Antarctica, a landmass larger than Europe, rich in resources, geological intrigue, and untapped potential, is the one region where every major world power agrees on one thing: no one is allowed in, no roads, no cities, no flags, just ice and secrets? The Antarctic Treaty was signed in December 1959 by 12 nations, including the United States, Soviet Union, the UK, and others. It now has over 50 signatories, making it one of the most globally respected and mysteriously enduring international agreements in recorded history. But here's where the story begins to fracture. The treaty, on its surface, promotes peaceful, scientific collaboration, ecological protection, and a prohibition on military activity. That seems noble, logical even, but step closer, and anomalies emerge like fracture lines under the ice. Let's begin with access. Want to visit Antarctica? Unless you're part of a registered research station, your path is blocked. Independent exploration is not just discouraged, it's prosecuted. No-fly zones span vast areas of the interior. Permission routes are tightly controlled. Even approved science expeditions are restricted to narrow corridors, monitored 24/7. And then, there's the satellites. Search Antarctica on online map providers, Google Earth, ArcGIS, Sentinel, and you'll quickly notice something off. Vast patches of blurred terrain, whitewash overlays, pixelated zones, and entire mountainscapes concealed beneath digital fragments. The Arctic, visible in high-resolution. Antarctica, censored. Here's the most revealing part. Areas concealed aren't necessarily where stations exist. They're where nothing is supposed to be. And yet, something is. Operation Icebridge, an airborne NASA survey mission, collected topographical data from 2009 to 2019. It revealed inconsistencies between public geological records and buried formations. When independent researchers began matching Icebridge heat data with points on Google Earth's no-access zones, acceleration of censorship followed. Coincidence? Consider next the Antarctic anomalies. Lake Vostok, a subglacial freshwater lake sealed beneath miles of ice, found to contain, according to declassified Russian reports, microbial life forms not seen elsewhere in biology, and possible magnetic pulses that skew instrument readings. Wilkes landmass anomaly, discovered in 2006 via satellite gravity mapping. Researchers say it may be a massive subsurface crater, or something artificial, measuring over 250 miles in diameter. Ellsworth Mountains, the region where pyramid structures are most reported, now overrun by restricted zones, inaccessible to even collaborative researchers. In 2016, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry traveled to Antarctica on the day of the American election. A bizarre choice in global politics. he visited McMurdo Station, but records don't reveal what part of the continent he truly saw. Shortly after, Patriarch Kirill, the head of the Russian Orthodox Church, a man of spiritual and geopolitical importance, made his own private journey south. He held a ceremony near Bellingshausen Station, and according to Russian mythological scholars, blessed a sealed relic said to date pre-Christianity. Then came a stream of high-level names. Buzz Aldrin tweeted ominously from Antarctica, "It is evil itself." Then was airlifted with severe health complications. Prince Harry visited under the guise of climate awareness. No footage was released. Scientists from CERN, the ESA, and DARPA have all conducted zoonotic, atmospheric, and resonance-based studies near Antarctica's central zones. No detailed findings were ever made public. What exactly is drawing such intense elite interest? Let's now turn our eyes upward. Unlike the North Pole, traversable by aircraft, satellites, and autonomous mapping drones, the South Pole airspace is riddled with restrictions and anomalies. Aircraft approaching certain coordinates report rapid equipment malfunction, GPS fails around the magnetic anomalies between Queen Maud Land and the Ross Ice Shelf. Civilian drones crash or vanish at coordinates repeated in Operation Deep Freeze documents from the 1970 STHE. Most bizarre, pilots report lights beneath the surface, visible from the sky, pulsing like rhythmic beacons. Something impossible from a sunless, ice-covered land, and yet, they're documented. These are not conspiracy eruptions. They're real, and they're ignored flagrantly by public science communicators, because Antarctica isn't just off-limits, it's under blackout, a place rented to record keepers, not revealed to humanity. The abundance of minerals, potential oil fields, rare earth elements, none of it is commercially touched. Not because extraction is difficult, but because it's off-limits by sacred decree, or something that's become one. This is especially odd when you consider SpaceX is navigating Mars colonization, while we've skipped an unexplored resource-rich Earth continent. Why risk space when Antarctica is untouched? Because maybe it's not untouched. Maybe it's already claimed, not by governments, but by agreements, possibly ancient, possibly written before writing, possibly encoded in culture, ritual, Masonic alignment, or Atlantean memory. Many esoteric researchers believe Antarctica serves as an energy stabilizing point for Earth's spiritual grid, a place meant to remain dormant until humanity awakens enough to interface with what lies below. Not above. The lockdown, then, isn't political, it's planetary, maybe even stellar. Consider the possibility that Antarctica holds a radiation of consciousness, dormant and waiting. Perhaps ancient builders built not structures, but resonance engines, sealed underground to hold space, time, and frequency together through cycles of extinction and rebirth. Some even speculate the true reason for so many expeditions, rituals, and black sites is not to prevent intrusion, but to guard a timing mechanism. A countdown not of days, but of dimensional alignment. The ice is melting faster than ever. The satellite suppression grows worse by the year. High-ranking insiders are more restless. Ancient clocks, if they exist, are ticking. But the most important truth, they can only hide Antarctica until consciousness rises above the control grid, because eventually, someone will ask, not with suspicion, but clarity. Why are we not allowed to visit the bottom of our own world? And that will shatter the silence. There's a reason Antarctica is silent, even in the age of noise. A reason it holds no nations. A reason it speaks no history aloud. Because Antarctica is not only a continent shrouded in secrecy, it is a symbol. Imagine, for a moment, that Antarctica is not just something hidden on Earth, but inside each of us. A frozen layer, ancient, silent, unmapped, that place in the soul where memory sleeps beneath generations of suppression, where ancestral knowledge was sealed after the flood, where sacred geometry, divine origin, cosmic birthright, and choice were buried beneath trauma, doctrine, and distraction. Call it the ice wall within. In every person on Earth, there is a part that remembers the old world, the time before control, before artificial light hid the stars, before sacred sites were turned into photo ops, before history was edited to serve conquerors. That place where truth still dwells is frozen, not lost, only sealed. And now, as with Antarctica, that inner ice is beginning to melt. Why? All over the world, consciousness is rising. One by one, people wake with questions. Why do I feel drawn to ancient texts, lost cities, celestial alignments? Why do I dream of temples I've never walked, maps I've never seen? Why do I feel like I've lived before the history books began? Because you have. That global awakening scientists observe, spiritualists describe, and quantum fields measure. It's not fiction. It's not fantasy. It's cellular memory, soul recall, an energetic activation tied to solar cycles, magnetic poles, and, yes, the quiet thawing of Antarctica itself. For what is climate, if not a mirror? What is ice melting, if not consciousness rising? We are connected to the Earth, not just biologically, but cosmically. Her wounds echo ours, her shifts mirror ours, as she reveals what's frozen deep within her heart. We too unlock what we've held back across lifetimes. DNA was once called junk. Now we call it code. What if parts of you were designed to stay dormant until now? What if, buried in your body is memory billions of years older than civilization? What if, as Antarctica thaws, so do you? This is not rhetorical. Look around. Books once banned are back in circulation. The Book of Enoch, the Gospel of Thomas, Gnostic texts, Sumerian tablets. Information spreads like light bursting from a crystal prism, illuminating lie after lie. People no longer care for headlines. They feel truths beneath them, and in collective dreams. The visions are returning, cities of light beneath ice, gates of fire, residue of divine activity, signs from before the silence. Psychics, meditators, and seekers report visions of Antarctica, not as cold, but as ancient, echoing temples, crystalline geometry, and beacon-like pulses. Could that be data the Earth wants us to remember? The ancients believed in axial Earth, that energy moved from pole to pole as time cycles reset. Could the world's coldest place become its next warm awakening? As the inner self rises, so does the pressure in institutions. Those who once dissected religion, myth, or nature as control mechanisms now feel them converging into a code of remembrance. We are no longer separate from knowledge. We are the knowledge, waking from a planetary sleep cycle, and like an alarm sounding across soul timelines. Antarctica whispers not, "Come find me," but, "Remember me." The ice wall is melting. Inside us, too. The global awakening isn't just politics or tech evolution. It's a return to what we knew, what we lost, what we survived. Antarctica is Earth's final mirror, not because it holds the past, but because it holds us, waiting to remember it. And when we do, the freeze breaks, the vault opens, and the bloodline of truth flows again. In the beginning, there was silence, and in the end, there will be remembering. Not through war, not through conquest, but through ice turned back into water, and story turned back into truth. What if Antarctica was never just a continent? What if it was always a keeper of time, of memory, of all that we lost, and all that we once were? It does not cry, it does not speak, it doesn't need to, because it was designed to survive the forgetting. You see, Antarctica doesn't hold the whole truth. It holds something more devastating, the proof that we were never told the truth in the first place. Think about it. What other landmass is erased from textbooks, redacted from images, owned by none yet ruled by all? What piece of Earth causes maps to glitch, instruments to fail, and the most powerful men to risk their lives just to quietly visit. What if the flood didn't destroy everything? What if it hushed the story, and Antarctica volunteered to hold what floated? We know now the maps weren't wrong. We know now the satellites aren't malfunctioning. We know now that something beneath that crown of white has stirred, and soon, it will no longer wait for permission. It will rise, not like Atlantis, in crashing drama, but in a tide of synchronization, a global realization, a tear in the veil, a pulse in the collective soul that says, wait, I've seen this before. In dreams, in echoes, in pyramids, hidden from plain sight, in stories dismissed by those who programmed the false chronicle. What we call Antarctica will only wear that name a little longer, because when it is revealed, when it speaks again, the story of Earth, Restarts, mark the pattern. The ice melts, the watchers tremble, the scrolls unseal, the people awaken. Ancient prophecy didn't speak of destruction, it spoke of renewal. Not everyone will hear the call, but those who have followed this journey, those who have remembered with their bones, those who dreamed of stars behind walls of snow, will understand. Earth is speaking from her oldest wound, and this time, no power shall wrench the truth back into silence. 22:5. Not a year, a threshold, a convergence between what we believe and what never stopped being real. Some revelations do not need confirmation. Some places do not need rescue, and some truths melt their own cages. So when the veil lifts, when the scroll opens, when the wind changes and light cracks open the darkness under frozen layers, you'll hear it, a voice like thunder, but rooted deeper, a breath from the bones of the planet itself, whispering, I never left you. You left me, and now I return. Antarctica will speak again, and when it does, so will you.